Food Banks Canada is a national organization that aims to not just reduce but eradicate hunger across the country. Believe it or not, their CEO, Chris Hatch, recently moved to Niagara. We thought we'd take this opportunity to invite him into the Source studio and introduce him to you. Chris Hatch, welcome to Niagara from all of us here
Mike.
at YourTV.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Let's talk a little bit about your organization. So your aim is to eradicate hunger. How do you expect to do that?
Well, we do it from two fronts. We do it from day to day, feeding people who need food immediately, who are facing hunger. So we support over 600 food banks across the country, and they in turn support another 2,500 food banks. So we support around 3,000 food banks, food programs across the country from coast to coast to coast for immediate needs, people who need food today. So that's the emergency food supply for people living with food insecurity. And then eradicating hunger, we work with the federal government, the provincial government to try to enact policy change, social policy changes, so people don't have to use a food bank in the first place. So we look at the underlying issues of poverty, which are really economic issues. We look at minimum wage, we look at basic income research, housing benefits, child benefits, and so forth, to try to have it so people don't have to use a food bank in the first place. So it's a two-legged stool, if you will.
Your role as CEO, are you involved more in the conversations with the government, I guess, rather than the food banks?
Well, I would say it's pretty balanced. I mean, I have staff in Ottawa that report through me through another executive in our team. But our team really is spending a significant amount of time raising funds and raising foods for the immediate needs. So the immediate need is so large. You know, before the pandemic hit, we're seeing over 1 million Canadians a month having to use a food bank in Canada. So that hasn't changed. It's only gotten more acute during the pandemic. So we're really pumping out a lot of food and a lot of money to support the food banking system day to day. And then we're also working. It's a longer term proposition, trying to get social policy change at the federal government or the provincial government.
Let me take you back to March when the Ontario government distributed $8 million to food banks to stock their shelves. You were involved in how that money was spent somehow.
Well, sure. I mean, we heard about that, and I was really impressed that the Premier stepped forward so quickly, number one, before anyone else did, and also, second of all, he got the money to the Ontario Food Bank Association, Feed Ontario, rapidly, and then they turned to us to say, how do we source, buy, procure $8 million worth of food? How do we pack it? How do we ship it? And so we helped out with some of my logistics people who do this every day nationally to help package, buy, purchase, and get the food shipped out immediately across Ontario. So $8 million worth of food we got shipped out immediately because the surge was so quick, Mike, in terms of the pandemic hitting, the lockdown went into place.
So if I look at the way all this flows, if I start from our local level, for instance, maybe community care in St. Catharines, they would normally converse with Feed Ontario, and then Feed Ontario would converse with Food Banks Canada.
That's right, and we converse with the Worldwide Food Banking Association out of Chicago. We're the Canadian member overseeing the worldwide food banking system, and it's called the Global Food Banking Network out of Chicago.
You have a network of warehouses across the country, and you're servicing areas as remote as Iqaluit and Nunavut.
That's right. We service. I mean, every community in Canada has a food bank of some type, and so so the logistics. I have a whole team that all they do is to move the food. We get donated food, large scale, or we're buying large scale in bulk. We need to move it. We're moving it by rail. We have a great relationship with CP Rail, CN Rail. They donate hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of space on the rails for us that we can use. Some of it's refrigerated. We use trucks. We use planes. We go over the ice highway. Anyway, we use shipping containers. Any way we can get it there. But we do service remote communities as well.
This is an organization, it really reminds me a lot of the buyers for Costco or Walmart. It's really run like a business, is it not?
Absolutely. In fact, we have a senior executive from Walmart on our board who's in charge of supply logistics. And so absolutely, it's connecting a donor who's got a lot of food to someone who needs the food and getting it delivered there safely, efficiently, quickly. We're moving frozen, fresh, all different kinds of goods. We got to get there, in pretty far remote locations.
When you've moved here into Niagara, how much did you know about our local food banks?
I knew nothing about the local food bank here. I asked, I said, what is the name of the local food bank? And they told me it was Newark Neighbors. I checked it out and happened to be right down the street from where I live. And so it's the only food bank I can think of, Mike, that's actually in a vineyard, by Peller Estates. And so I've gone by. They haven't been open, but I hope to make a connection with someone there to see if I can help them out. I mean, I just can't be down the street and not, offer my help at the local food bank.
We've spoken before, and you're adamant that local charities, all charities really need to have a business mindset to really run efficiently and effectively.
I feel very passionately about that. I've been in the charitable sector. I came out of the corporate sector for 25 years. We're in the charitable sector now since 2005. And the charitable sector needs a strong dose of good, strong business acumen. I mean, things we talked about, HR, technology, human resources, marketing, finance. And so I encourage people with a business background to get involved. I mean, volunteer time or change careers.
Well, your own story is kind of interesting because, as you say, 25 years in the corporate world, you volunteered at the Mississauga Food Bank. You ended up running the Mississauga Food Bank.
The next thing I know, I was tapped to recruit to run the national organization. But I feel very strongly, without being cold-hearted, there's always a mission at heart with the charities. You can't lose sight of your mission, but it needs to be run very business-like. And more of our donors, our corporate donors, large-scale global donors, are expecting the charity to run very business-like. When they make a donation, they expect it to be a professionally run business, a charity or otherwise.
You talk about sustainability for the long run, and one of the things that you did in Mississauga was the Aquaponics program, which really moved towards sustainability.
Absolutely, that was a great project. A couple of reasons we did that. One is to be able to grow fresh vegetables, in this case lettuce, year-round, because we have a different growing season, in the wintertime. So it allowed us to control our supply of fresh, because we were always at the mercy of the farmers donating. So we could grow our own fresh, mainly romaine and bok choy is what we grew, and year-round inside the warehouse of the food. But we carved out a piece of the warehouse and created the aquaponics farm, and then also created fish. We raised fish and had the fish sent off, filleted, flash frozen, and shipped out. Another source of great protein. You usually don't get fish donated to your food bank. So it gave us fish, it gave us fresh vegetables, it gave a great experience of sustainability, in an urban farm, if you will. Had tons of school kids come in, so it was a learning experience as well. So it really hit it was a win-win all the way around for us.
Right now, everybody in your organization is working remotely. You're controlling all of this, overseeing it all from your brand new house in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
That's right. We've worked remotely since the pandemic hit, and we decided in the fall to go permanently remote. So I've got a staff of 40 people, mainly in the Toronto area. The rules were you had to stay in Canada. So once we said we're working remotely, I said you can live anywhere you want, but you have to live in Canada. So we had someone move to the West Coast. I got staff in Ottawa with my government relations. I got staff in Calgary, but the bulk of the staff are in the GTA. So it was a great time to move down to Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Chris, we're so glad to have you here in Niagara. Can we pick your brain in the future when some of these issues arise on this program?
Absolutely. Absolutely can. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Thanks for having me.